Well, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing great. I hope you had a fun day today. It was one hell of a precipitous drop in the index and a lot of excitement going on in the marketplace. So I hope everybody's doing fantastic. I see Dan's here, the most important person, and I see that Craig is already recording. So Craig's doing his job. Um, do we want to give a few more minutes? Does anybody need to do a mic check?
Can you hear me? I wasn't able to connect my headphones to my computer, so I'm on my phone again. So
I hear you just fine, man.
okay. Yeah, give it another minute or two. Let everyone join, and then we can get started whenever.
Yeah, you have a good day.
I was actually in union negotiations all day, and I got home at 2:50. And I ended up having a great day, and it was probably a better day because I got home so late, and I sort of just sat down and slammed short. I think I got in at 39. I covered most around 15 or 18. I can't remember, somewhere around there.
Yeah, good. Less is more, right?
I think I just got lucky and I sat down at the right time.
Yeah, good for you.
I saw us bounce off 36 once, and then we just kept selling. I was like, we're going to dump through 36, and I knew through 36 we would go pretty good.
Yeah, it was quite a cascade.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone else had a pretty good day.
Yeah.
I actually find days like this quite difficult, which is probably why being there late was advantageous. But I don't find days that are sort of blowing through levels, and sort of it looks like we actually pushed up at the start of the day. It looked like, is that right?
Oh yeah, we did. We pushed up a bit.
And then was there news on that bank, or did something else happen that I missed?
No, there was some payroll news.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but got a hell of an opening gap for tomorrow. Jesus, it's like you could drive a truck through that fucker.
Yeah, tomorrow will be interesting. I think there's payrolls at I don't know what time, but sometime tomorrow.
Yeah, 8:30. We've got NFP.
Yeah, so I mean that could be real ignition. I mean, this is what happens when you have sort of, I mean, obviously that Silicon Valley Bank thing is not good, but you have a market that has not really been prepared for the downside because it hasn't come, right? And I think bear markets, they tire people out, and that's when downside comes, when everyone is no longer thinking it's gonna.
Yep, surprises of the element.
Yeah.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hey, Lee, how are you?
Doing?
Who, where?
Good, Rich.
Where?
How are you?
Good to hear your voice.
You also.
How's life down in Naples today?
Hot and muggy.
Oh, terrible.
We got like 3 days of winter this year. It's been in there.
What was winter? 60?
No, we got a couple of 50s, 52, 53.
Crimea River.
Break out the parkas.
Yeah.
I had to go chop some firewood.
Oh, stop it.
Florida pussy.
All right, well, it's 5 after, so
Yeah, let's get going.
yeah.
So,
Dan, you were when I was in power trading, I don't remember at what point you came in, but I remember seeing this guy firing off all these trades, and especially I was most impressed at this guy who was trading crude. And I thought, man, here's a guy with big balls, because that's the last thing that I ever considered trading, and still haven't done it yet. But it seemed like you were whipping it pretty good whenever you did it.
well, I had a crazy run on crude oil. So I don't remember when it was, maybe April or March of last year. Actually, Lee was with me on most of those trades, but yeah, I do have some big balls.
Well, Tell us
I
about
don't really
the
I
formation.
don't really have fear in trading, and that's a positive and a negative thing. Um, you know, fear is I was always taught in all of my different careers that fear is good. You know, fear helps you keep your sort of head on a swivel. In trading, fear is horrible for me. I'm when I say stuff, I'm just speaking from my own experience and from when I've traded scared and traded tentative is when I've traded poorly. Um, that crude oil sort of run I went on last year was one of the better trading runs I've gone on. But I didn't exactly keep all those winnings and gains. So I'll sort of start from the beginning and sort of where this sort of the thought of fearless and um, not worrying about consequences, I guess, comes from for me. I grew up in fortunately a reasonably fortunate sort of household. Both of my parents well educated. My mother valedictorian at an Ivy League college. My father a well-known attorney. But just like a lot of people's families, we had a lot of issues, and one of the biggest issues was my mother had some mental health issues, and me being the oldest child, that got taken out on me quite often. And I got sort of learned to get very thick skin very, very quickly. So when I was sort of in high school, I was very athletic and I played sports year round, but I excelled in baseball. And that was sort of my one and first true love was playing baseball. And I always wanted to go play college baseball on to playing pro. I was always told I was good enough to do those things, but I didn't. I wanted it badly. I wanted it to the point where my summer after my senior year of high school, I actually tore my rotator cuff and refused to go to the doctor, and just played through pain. And back then, they were giving cortisone shots like they were candy. So I was getting injected pretty often and sort of just playing through that pain. That summer also, I wasn't even 18 years old yet. I think I was 17. I started being a little bit rebellious, and my mother kicked me out of the house at 17 years old. No job, no money, nothing. And I didn't really have anywhere to go. So I ended up bouncing around from couch to couch of friends and, being on my own. I didn't talk to my mother for a couple of years. And that sort of made me realize, I'm going to need to do something for money here. And that was sort of what started me getting the itch to succeed and the drive to succeed, knowing that, I didn't have a safety net to fall back on because I always thought I would have that safety net, and all of a sudden it got ripped away. So the crude reality of life sort of hit me quickly that, holy shit, if I don't make my own money, I'm not going to have any. Dealing with that sort of that shoulder injury, that was going to be my way to college, which I ended up getting to college on baseball and playing for a little bit, but I was a catcher and I couldn't play without my arm. So then I really just started fucking off is really what it was. So as someone who's a 17, 18-year-old and needs money and, in pain, obviously the first thing that happened was I started using drugs, weed. I was prescribed painkillers. Back then, no one knew how the effects of long-term painkiller use would affect someone. And in order to supplement my painkiller addiction, I was selling weed, crack, cocaine, all of those things just to allow me to feed my addiction and live. So I learned really quickly that, if I needed to do something for money, but I also was someone who was going to have to spend a lot. So after a while, I realized that there was other ways to make money besides doing illegal things, and I started playing poker online, and that became an actual addiction in itself. And playing poker online back at the time, there was Full Tilt Poker and Bodog Poker and all these different online poker things, and you could play 10, 15 rooms at once, and that actually probably taught me more about trading than any other experience in life, because of the fast-paced, quick decision making you have to make playing 10, 15 online poker rooms at a time. And knowing that the decision you make could be the difference between $500, $1,000. And for me at the time, it was if I was going to be able to pay rent. So I realized that I needed to make the right decisions and learn very quickly to make the right decisions, so I would be able to have somewhere to live. And at the same time struggling with my addiction. That all sort of came crashing down. Now it's when I was probably 24, 25, and ended up sort of broke, jobless, and really with nowhere else to go except for a rehab because I needed somewhere to live. That was sort of the big awakening for me, was, this wasn't a sustainable way of life. And I was going to need to find something else to put my time into. This was right after the financial crisis. There wasn't a job in the world. I graduated college, I think, with whatever the minimum was. I think 2.1 or 2.0 was the minimum to graduate. I think I had a 2.3. It wasn't really because I couldn't do the work. I remember going to a math class, and I thought it was so easy that I went the first day, and I stopped going to class, and not realizing the first day when they gave me the syllabus, going was 80% of my grade. So that sort of, I luckily got through college somehow. Not really sure how, don't remember a lot of it, but then graduating, not knowing sort of what the job market would give me. So jumping around from job to job, construction job, commercial fishing, roofing, doing painting, all sorts of stuff. Just anything I could do to sort of scrape by, because, I didn't have anything. So that support system that a lot of people do have, especially when they get out of college, wasn't there, and in a time when the globe was in a massive recession. That was sort of when I started looking at investing and thinking about trading. I never really did at the time, but I had friends who did, and I think I had, at the time, I had stocks from an account my grandfather gave me in 2001, but I didn't really think about it much until later on. So it's actually how I ended in the railroad. I ended up in the railroad because I'm actually 5th generation railroad, and my mother decided she was having a good day one day, and called my uncle who worked there and said, my son needs a job. He's a fuck up. Can you throw him a bone? And he did. That's how I ended up there. And it's a very tough way of life. At the time, you could work 7 days a week, up to 16 hours a day. And I just got, again, addicted to working. So this whole sort of time has been sort of pushing one addiction for another, which was all the way back from baseball in high school all the way to working and trying to grind and make money. So sort of fast forward to around 2017, 2018 was when I really starting to look into trading, using sort of money I had saved up from working when I started on the railroad. I don't know, I worked 90 something straight days, and I was saving money just because, when you don't have any, all of a sudden you get some. And the railroad was a good paying job. It still is. All of a sudden you get some, you don't want to spend it. That I was the opposite of most people. I didn't want to spend it. I didn't want to ever be poor again. And so I really started hoarding my money and decided that online poker is now illegal. So what am I going to do? Am I going to be content with getting up, going to work every day for the rest of my life and, making a good living, but not making a great living? I've always been someone that's not content where I am. I always need to be pushing forward. And so I started trading unsuccessfully. I had no idea what I was doing. I started mostly trading. I didn't know there was anything more than equities or penny stocks. And so that's what I would trade. I would trade equities, penny stocks. And I started realizing, well, I'm actually pretty good at this. And I had some pretty early success. And then my failures actually came quite a bit later, where I didn't really have any real failures until around 2 years after I had started. That was like 2020, actually after the COVID crash. I think it was in March after the COVID crash. That was sort of when we bottomed, if I remember correctly. And I was just shorting the piss out of the market every day. And I just got railroaded. That's no pun intended. Actually, it really wasn't a pun intended. But I just got ran over. So that was sort of my first account blow up, where I had been doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden didn't. That was sort of when I decided, when I came back from that and licked my wounds, was, well, how am I going to make back the money? That was always number one on my mind, was making back the money I had lost, because I took my account from, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000 all the way to 40 or 50,000 in a couple of years, and just mostly trading penny stocks. And now I went and took that from 40, 50 to zero. So then I took some savings, I deposited again. Now I need to sort of make it back. I actually did, and thankfully and luckily for me, I got on the right side of a couple of trades on the way back up. I think it was in April of 2020, and took that money again from 4,000 or 5,000 to 20,000, 30,000. And then again, because I was trying to make it back, and I was like, oh, I'm almost back to where I was playing massive size for my account, and I was pushing. And that was sort of right around where I discovered options. I had no idea what an option was. I didn't understand that it was a derivative of anything. I didn't know what the word derivative meant. And I needed to, all I knew was that it was a way that I could leverage the money in my account to make back what I had lost, which I'm sure you could guess has ended poorly. But I still sort of didn't get that I was doing anything wrong. I looked at it as a poker player and as someone who had always taken risks, as sort of, oh, well, I messed up again. I need to start over. The next time, and this was my third and hopefully my last blow up, was I deposited money again. I think I deposited, I don't know, 8, 9, or 10,000. And I ran that to almost 80, I think. And I still remember the ticker it was. And I was dead right. So, and some of you may remember this, it was Kodak, a well-known stock from sort of the days of old. And I can't remember if it was Trump that said something about it or what it was. Maybe someone remembers in here and can jump in if you do remember what it was. But that stock went from, I don't know, $2 to 10 or 11 on the first day of the move on it. And I'm looking at the stock and I'm looking at everything that's happened and other moves when Trump had pumped other stocks also, that they tended to fade. So I think it was either a Monday or a Tuesday night, 3:30, I decided to put my whole account short. It wasn't my whole account. It was probably about half my account short Kodak equity. Shorting stocks is not something I did a whole lot. I had played options and puts, but shorting I hadn't done a whole lot. And I did not think what was going to happen happened. And what had happened was, I knew, and it actually ended up being true, that this Kodak thing was messed up. Someone leaked this information, someone got in front of the move, and it would come out that there was some sort of sketchy pump and dump scheme by the executive team of Kodak, which is actually what ended up happening. Just my timing was quite poor. So I was short the stock, held it overnight stupidly. And the next morning, I can't remember if it was pre-market or very quick into the day, that thing just went into rocket halt mode and I could not get out. I was trying to market cover. I couldn't get out because every time the thing opened, it halted. All of a sudden, Fidelity Margin called me. I think my account was almost 80 grand at the time. They margin called me negative 40 grand, I think. And yeah, so that was a pretty big one. That was probably the moment where I realized, well, there's a lot of money to be lost here. And that was when the first moment, and actually, I think the only moment I can remember in my trading journey, where I said, I can't do this. I just was on the wrong side of things. I remember sitting on the couch in my old apartment. I owned a multifamily house, and I remember sitting on the couch and just crying on my now wife's shoulder because I just lost our deposit for a home. And we were actively looking for a house to get out of the city. And that was sort of the first time I can remember losing money and having it be real, and feeling that true sense of failure, and that I had let her down, and let myself down. And I thought that, I just wouldn't trade again. But I remember sitting and I know Lee knows, and Rich may know, my wife's a therapist. And I remember sitting there, and it's good for me. I need one. She said, well, I know you can make it back at some point. I'm not worried about that, but do you really love trading? Is this something you really, really love to do? And I said, it is. And I think I said it is, but I suck at it. And she's like, I haven't known you to be someone who sucks at anything. And I think you can do it. You just need to do better. And I think that was sort of a big wake up call for what I needed to do and how I needed to get better. thankfully, I took a big risk and I opened an account at a different brokerage and left my little margin call at Fidelity for a little bit, and I made a very lucky trade. A couple of, I don't remember if it was a week or 2 weeks later, I got half of it back, and I paid half of the margin call, and then I was able to really get lucky in that crazy post-COVID crash market and pay that back. If I think I quit and just sat there and took my big L, I don't think I would have traded again because it and I fully credit my now wife for this. Is she was able to support me and say, if this is something you really want. I could see the scared in her face, knowing, because that type of money to lose, I don't think she really comprehended exactly what had even happened. She saw that how upset I was, and but it was really what pushed me to keep going. Now, we'll fast forward a little bit more to like 20. I don't even remember when it was, but I ended up in a Discord room, not similar to this one at all, with a guy who is now in federal prison with Lee here. Well, Lee's not in federal prison, but that's how I met Lee, is actually in a Discord room with the guy by the Twitter handle Laid Back. And we ended up in there because, to me, I was like, well, I got really lucky and bailed out of a couple of bad trades here. I actually really need, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to actually learn what I'm doing. And what, during COVID, what was everyone else doing is they were going in Discord rooms, and all these Twitter gurus were calling this and that. And, that was my way of saying, I'm going to actually learn what I'm doing for once and not just throw money around. So it actually ended up being one of the better decisions I've ever made, not because of the room. The room was horrible, but because of a lot of people I met in there. And I met a lot of good people in there that I still keep in touch with and talk to on a very regular basis. And that sort of group of people that I met in that room helped each other learn how to trade. And not, it was pure coincidence. We ended up in this room with a guy who was literally in the room saying, watch this, and would pump stocks at the same time. He would tell everyone to buy them. He would go on Twitter. He would make posts. I remember, I think it was Wingstop, and Lee, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Wingstop. Him and Zach Morris would go in. They would buy a whole bunch of that, and you would see the volume candles on that thing. Then they would both go on Twitter and say something about Wingstop, and this thing would jump $10 because the float was, I don't know, 150,000 shares. And they were doing this all the time. So, but that was sort of my first experience in sort of trying to learn how to trade. Everything else had been just doing it and doing it myself. That experience sort of led to that room being shut down, or I don't even remember what happened. I think he closed it one day, and all of the cast-offs from his paid Discord service went into another room, and we taught each other to trade sort of on our own. We had all been talking for a while, and but we all learned how to trade together.
I'm sure the SEC would like some snapshots from that room.
Oh, they would be dying for them. There was when I saw that they got arrested, instantly I'm like, oh my God, if they ever saw some of the stuff that actually went on in that room, it was unbelievable. It wasn't really, because it was really mostly those two and some other ones. No one else had enough money in there to really throw it around and move a stock, but they did, and I certainly made some money following it. I'm not gonna lie, I did. But again, it still wasn't learning how to trade. I really got caught in the never-ending cycle of bullshit furu, educational but not really educational, pretend to be the secret sauce groups of the trading world. And the hardest thing to really learn at the end of the day is there is no secret sauce. And there is no secret furu room that exists that's going to make you a better trader. It just does not exist. There's people that are good mentors, that are great teachers, but there's no real magic sort of sauce. At that point, I really just put all of my focus at that point to learning sort of about how the market works, and realized that I needed to teach myself how the market works. And whether it be through YouTube videos or books or doing playbacks of different trades on whatever trading software is. And I just really needed to teach myself what was going to work for me, because there's really, until you really make the effort to learn instead of following, you're never going to make it. And I still, all the time, I make mistakes all the time, but I learn from them. And I've learned that I can't oversize, because things like the Kodak blow up will happen. And I need to really focus on getting better every single day. It's sort of a constant process of learning to learn how to trade. I ended up in where I met a lot of you guys in sort of the power trading room, or the room not to be named, I should say. And that actually ended up being one of the better decisions I made. Not necessarily because of the content shared. I guess it is because of the content shared. The content shared in there, and from everybody that contributed in there. I learned more in there than I have learned in actually any other place. And it allowed me to at least get myself on the right track to where I should be looking and where I should be focusing my time, and getting better at my own process, and actually learning the market instead of following others who supposedly know it. I remember there, and I'll have to try and think of exactly how it was worded to me. I think it was, and I've said it in the room, and probably the most important message that anyone has ever said to me, and I'm probably going to misquote it terribly, was in that other room, and it was Gov said to me something like, I went from 8 screens to 3 or 2 or something like that, and I stopped looking at so much, and I needed to cut back to get a clearer view. And I think it was the sentence, so many in here are only looking at a 5-minute chart. And to me, that was, for some reason, that just hit me, because it's like, holy shit, I only do look at a 5-minute chart. He's right. I don't know if it was 5 minute, I look at 5, 10. I would look at daily sometimes at the end of the day to see what's going on. But that was a one of, it doesn't sound like it, but it was knowing that someone's been doing this for a long time, knowing that this person just went from looking at a whole lot of stuff to looking at a whole little. And here I am with my 6 screens and laptop and iPad looking at 900 things, and I only have 2 eyes. That really was just game changer. It was something that, why am I looking at this? So that was where I started the process of breaking down absolutely everything I am doing. Because clearly I've had success trading. Clearly I've had massive failures in trading. But what I haven't had is consistency. And some days I would trade futures. Some days I would trade options. Some days I would trade equity. If someone, and Neil had mentioned this last session, if someone asked me, what do I trade? I don't know. The market, whatever's moving, whatever has relative strength was what I was told once, or relative weakness. That's no way to, you should know exactly what you trade. Looking back on that massive crude oil run that I went on, that was probably the best 2 weeks I've ever traded. And it was because I was only looking at crude oil. I was not looking at anything else. But I don't think I made that connection at the time, that the reason I was trading crude oil so well was because I was only looking at crude oil. I just thought I went on a crazy run. And looking back on it and reliving that was, I needed to really narrow down my focus to, if someone says, how does Dan trade? Everyone should say what does he do? Does he trade futures? Does he trade options? Does he trade foreign exchange? What does he trade? What is he good at? What is he not? It should be something that you should be able to ask yourself, what do I trade? And know the answer. And the more I thought about that, and the more I thought about the comment that Gov made, and the secret sauce to that crazy crude oil run, which is still to this day the biggest futures day I've ever had. And actually, I gave back a fair amount of that because I didn't know what I was good at or not. I thought I could trade crude oil while also trading the S&P 500 and natural gas and whatever other crazy leveraged insane instrument with people with a lot more bankroll than me, with a lot more experience than me, that want my money, are trading. And I thought I could trade them all at the same time. And really came to the gross realization, I would say probably maybe 6 months ago, 5 months ago even, that I really needed to narrow myself down. And that's where I really started paring back the amount I was trading options and started focusing more on futures, because I personally, futures fit my style a little bit better. I cannot stand that empty, miserable feeling you get in your stomach when you have a whole load of options of something and it is 5 o'clock and some news hits and holy shit, your options just went to damn near nothing and there is not a goddamn thing you can do about it. For me, that is the reason why I like futures better. It is you have really an hour a day that you cannot exit a trade if you're in it, and you have Friday from 5 p.m. till Sunday at 6. And I don't swing futures, and cutting that swinging things out of my repertoire maybe only happened 2 or 3 months ago in a full way, because I had done it with success for the last 18 months. But I needed to cut that out because it was hurting my own mental health, and the anxiety of, even though it is a binary risk and a limited monetary value risk, it's a control thing for me. I didn't like that feeling of being at the mercy of something happening and not being able to do anything about it, or not being able to exit my trade. So once I just can't emphasize enough. And I'll still take options here and there, small, usually day trades. Sometimes I'll carry very, very small risk overnight, but nothing that would be, causing me to lose a wink of sleep if it went to zero the next day. I don't like losing. I guess I would probably be mad that I lost and did something stupid. But in terms of actually financially hurting me, or hurting my account, I'm not going to swing something that, if it went to zero, is ever going to hurt me again. That being able to rest easy, being able to go play with the dog and, sit and watch a movie. I'm a recovering addict. If I have positions on, you better fucking believe I'm looking at the market. And for me, I needed to get away from that. That's what futures allow me to do, is allow me to remove myself from the market. Today is something I could not have done a year ago. I just couldn't have done it. I left my house early this morning. I went into the office. I didn't even look at the market once until I sat down at my desk when I got home at 2:50 in the afternoon. Not once did I look at the market. And why? Because I had no positions on. I had no skin in the game. And it allowed me to have a great day, to do my real job well, I think. I mean, the other side might disagree, but it allowed me to separate and be away and be present where I was and not worrying about what was going on in my account. And it gave me sort of a peace of mind, and it was a good feeling. That's why I ended up sort of where I am today, which is focusing on futures trading. I guess the real, and I know Lucky had asked what the sort of aha moment was. The aha moment was just watching Gov trade, to be honest, and then realizing that, wow, I think that he said to me in a message once last year, yeah, I didn't take a trade today. I was on the beach. I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have been able to separate because, I would always have some sort of options position on, and I wouldn't be able to actually physically disconnect from the market and be present in life. And I can't thank him enough and I know he didn't mean it to even affect me like it did, but it did. And so that's sort of the way I look at things. Is sometimes just the things that we say in rooms like this and in the course of chatting about trading and whatnot, you never know what's going to affect someone else and what's going to help someone else, because I guarantee you my process is a whole lot different than everyone else in this room's. And for whatever reason it should be. My process isn't going to work for everybody. Lucky's process isn't going to work for everybody. You have to find your own process and find your own sort of secret sauce. And until you're okay with not being in a trade and working on that, on how you're going to trade, being able to answer that question of what do you trade and what's a setup you like. I mean, I don't think that it's you can really be successful at this. I'm going to just sort of look at some of the questions here. I don't know if anyone wants to stop me from rambling. I've been rambling quite some time here, but if anyone wants to stop me, don't all speak up at once.
I didn't think you were rambling.
I appreciate that. I usually do. So I'm looking at a couple of questions from from Socks. It's not my. He asked, curious about swinging ES and selling ES option. I am not the guy to answer that question. You know, I don't know. I can't answer that one. That's a step above my pay grade. Braden asked, how to identify the right time to enter a trade based on tapping a level and waiting for a sign of a bounce for long? Or is it along the long lines of knife catching into a level or waiting for a level to be reclaimed for more confirmation? So right time to enter a trade. So there's got to be a couple of sort of. Someone say something or no? All right. So right time to enter a trade. It's going to depend on what your goal is here. Is it a swing trade? Is it a short-term future scalp? And what's going to the impression it's a short-term future scalp? I will take the example because it was a setup and a setup of a trade that should probably be the only trade setup I take, but it's not. But I'll go over that one from yesterday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon was probably, and I one of the better executed trades. I can always take every trade I make and pick something apart that I did wrong. It's part of being a perfectionist. It's part of having sort of OCD. It's part of, just being who I am. Is I can always find something I did wrong in most every trade I take. But yesterday, the afternoon was sort of perfect. So 75 was a level that I had seen. I had it as a repeat level. It was a level that was just, it looked strong. It didn't, and quite frankly, we didn't look all that weak to me. I had confluence with Apple. I believe it was 153 was the second standard deviation on Apple. This is a sort of a newer thing I'm working on, is trying to have more confluence between different instruments before I enter a trade. So I'm right now I'll go over my personal process. And everyone, again, they need to work on their own, and they need to identify their own spot to enter a trade. But my personal process was, I was looking at Apple 153. It had that was sort of the area that it had bounced at earlier in the day. I was looking at the Russell RTY. I was looking at that on a faster time frame than ES. So everyone knows I use Renko charts. So this isn't really a Renko seminar, but and I'm not even the one to lead a Renko seminar, but I use a bigger block and trend size for my Renko charts on ES than I do on RTY. I use the same on NQ, but NQ is much faster. So it's essentially that I am using a faster time frame, or it's not even time frame, faster. I don't know what the right word is. I guess time frame. I'll go with that. But so I saw the RTY was not making a new low when ES was. NQ was making a new low, but ES wasn't. And I knew that Apple, obviously, if we're looking at NQ, Apple's sort of going to be your pony there. And if Apple bounces off of that support, then that was my trigger to enter that trade. And that's what I looked at as my trigger, was if Apple bounces off this support, I have RTY already curled up. I have ES not making a new low when RTY or when NQ is. So I'm going to look to see if Apple bounces here. If Apple bounces here, so will NQ, and I'm going to get long, and that's what I did. Maintain good self-awareness. Braden asks, how do I maintain good self-awareness while I'm trading? Sometimes I don't. It's a weakness of mine. I I will say that is wholeheartedly one of my biggest weaknesses is I am very poor at acknowledging when I am not on my game. I realize it after the fact. I'm great at sort of backwards looking self-awareness and realizing, hey, holy shit, you probably shouldn't have been trading today. You were not thinking about the market. You were thinking about whatever else was on your mind. So I wouldn't really give a good answer to that because I think that's a real weakness of mine, and it's an acknowledged weakness of mine that I need to work on, and I need to be able to acknowledge and accept that, yeah, I don't got it today, and know when that is, and know what the signs of that are, because you're not going to have it every day. Last week I was on an absolute tear. Monday tear, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday tear. Friday I was off, and I traded awful. I made poor trades. I made poor exits. I made poor entries. I traded horrible, and I had no idea how horrible I was trading until the end of the day. So I think that that's something that maybe we should revisit, and some of the other folks in this room should jump in on being self-aware. What do you guys got? How do you is there a time when you're trading when how do you make that connection that maybe I don't have it today? I'm not on my A game. What's that sort of trigger look like for you? I'm going to keep asking questions until someone answers one of them.
I'll shoot.
Go ahead.
This is Lucky. Yeah, I know. I should probably stop when I stop out of a trade, and then I'm already kind of hot on the trigger to find something else.
Stop out in profit or stop out for loss?
Both. Like I'll be in a trade, and it might be a little bit green, but it's just not acting right or acting fast enough for me. Kind of like it can be green, but I'll stop out based on time, especially with options because of decay. Or it can be red, and I'll stop out below my entry, and whether the trade goes green or keeps going opposite of my direction, I kind of just forget about it at that point. But the issue is when I end a trade and it's not satisfactory to me, right? Obviously, if I'm in a good trade and it's going and I'm letting it run, then it's satisfying. But it's when I stop out and I'm not satisfied, and
what
I
would
start
satisfy
hunting
you?
for something else.
Is
A
it the
successful
money?
trade,
Is
Yes.
it dollar amount for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Because for me, it's not always dollar amount.
But it's having. Yeah, I wouldn't say so much dollar amount as much as just having a trade that actually getting in on a trend move.
Gotcha.
I prefer not to scalp. I like trades where I get in somewhere and I have a nice exit far away from in my direction, far away from my entry. Rather than just catching, a wave. In a shorter time frame. So that's usually when I get up and take a walk is when I stop out of a trade, get out of a trade, and it's not to my liking, and then I'm already kind of trying to find other things, which just actually occurred with me today.
Yeah.
I was short a handful of things, and after an hour or two, nothing was really dropping yet. The real precipitation didn't occur until I don't know, like afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I had already kind of lost my patience, and then shortly thereafter, I found myself trying to catch a knife, and took a small loss, and then that was pretty much it for the day for me. So I was okay because I did all right with my puts at first, but had I just sat tight, would have been much better off. And then I basically sidelined myself. I took a walk. I took a break for, I don't know, an hour or two, and came back, and everything was much lower.
How'd you do when you came back?
I was trying to catch a bounce at that point. You never think that things can go as far as they do, and I was trying to catch a bounce around SPY 395, and didn't work out. Small loss, just a paper cut, and then that was pretty much it for the day for me.
Well, I guess my
obviously,
question
if I
is
just
for
yeah,
I'm asking for a reason. It is one of the things that I find is the biggest confidence builder I can get is if I stop out and I was right to stop out. So say I'm long and I stop out -4, 5, 6, whatever points, and it keeps going, right? That's a confidence builder for me. Now, the thing that gets me is, okay, well, now I stopped out and I was right. As a futures trader, that is the thing that throws me off my game. More than stopping out and it going against me and having a loss. The reason I was asking is for me, I need to stop trading when I make a mistake that I know has traditionally led to more mistakes and more losses. And for me, getting up, walking away, and coming back, it doesn't do me any good because I am going to hold that L, and I am going to be bitter and mad, and I just trade very poorly when I'm bitter and mad and annoyed that I could have. That's always in my head. And I'm sure others in this room can associate with the I could have made 20 points, or I could have, caught SPX for a 10x move. The I could have is always the most damaging to me personally. And thanks for sharing that, because it's important to, I think, to look back and think, did my getting up and walking away, did it help me? And next time that happens, because it's inevitable, it's going to happen, I probably should do something that will help me. And I'm not saying it didn't today, and I hope you're not taking it that way, or that I'm coming at you by any means. I'm not. It's more of that self-reflection type thing where being able to reflect on how you recover from losses, and how you get yourself back into trading well. And for me, trading well is usually not taking another trade, because I'm usually going to just compound it and make myself more frustrated. Anyone else? I think Braden unclicked also when right before Lucky did. What were you going to say? Now you're going to be shy.
No, I was trying to get to it. Actually, I kind of forgot, not gonna lie.
Your question was, how do you maintain good self-awareness? Why do you ask that question? How do you maintain good self-awareness, or is that a weakness of yours?
Oh, honestly, I don't really have a problem identifying my self-awareness. The problem is that I will, and I don't care. Like, it's like, okay, I know I'm doing this. I know I'm like this. This is happening, blah, blah, blah. I just took 3 stop outs. I don't care. Boom, next trade.
Is that a weakness or a strength?
Honestly, I don't know yet. That's a good question. I'd probably say it's a
because
weakness as of right now.
It's
for me,
business. You better care.
Yeah.
exactly, and that's just sort of what I was getting at.
It's an
Is I
emotion,
think it's
and the answer to both you and Lucky is, what is your plan? And if you stick to it, you don't have these emotions. You don't get angry as much, and you don't break shit or even need to walk away. You just
that's not
take it
true.
in
I break
stride.
plenty of stuff.
But the sooner you're able to emotionally detach yourself from the outcome, the better off you'll be. And that,
100%.
Right.
and it's a really, really difficult thing to do because emotions are really powerful. Like creep up, and like you don't even know you had emotions until you start trading. You find out
You're
more
right.
about yourself when through trading than you ever really will do in anything else in a lot of ways. But
In marriage.
yeah, so make sure that you have a plan and you are doing things for a particular reason, because otherwise you're just trading emotionally, and that's where you can get into anger trading, revenge trading, where you just say I don't care anymore, all of that. So it really comes down to having a plan, having a process. Just like people at Goldman aren't just doing whatever the hell they think of on a whim,
Right.
So that's just a really important point, and
and
it's going to be the answer to a lot of questions.
and let's sort of bring this away from trading, and let's I'll use an example in my job of a time when losing self-awareness is extremely damaging, right? So I recently, I guess it was maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, had a employee of mine who lost self-awareness, and he was riding the side of a train car. It was late at night. Employee was tired. He had a fight with his wife earlier that day. And again, we've only found this out sort of in doing a look back of what happened and why something happened. So, this is something that I do in my regular life a lot, is looking at where concentration lapses happen. And in my line of work, concentration lapses happen. People get injured or killed. It's not they lose money, it's they lose legs. And unfortunately for this person, he had a concentration lapse. He was not have his head fully in what he was doing. He did not, if I guarantee you at that time, if I went to him and say, hey, are you focused? He would say, what do you mean? Go fuck yourself. Of course I'm focused. He lost self-awareness. He went around a corner of a curve, and there's something called close clearance points. He got caught between a close clearance point and the train and lost his leg. So he had a very short lapse of judgment and lapse of self-awareness, forgot where he was, probably was thinking about something else. And he lost that focus. So being able to sort of maintain focus in trading is different, right? You're not going to lose a leg, but you could lose a whole lot of money, which to a lot of people, that's worse. And you need to be able to identify when you don't have complete focus, and when those distractions of life are in the way of being completely focused, and adapting to that either by not being at the desk and not being at the screen, or whatever your way of bringing yourself back to focus is. There's a lot of ways to do that, but it's that being able to look inside at yourself and say, I'm not focused right now. I need to step away from the screen. I need to go watch a movie. I need to take a nap. I need to just get the fuck out of here. And I think that that's something that is certainly one of my weaknesses. I've gotten a lot better at being self-aware, but I'm nowhere near where I need to be. But it's one of the things that if you're not self-aware in trading and when you're trading well and when you're off your game, when you're not focused, when you're pressing, you might as well, pack it in because you're going to get smoked.
When I wake up every day, my goal is to make the best decisions I can. And the best decisions I make on the trading floor, trading electronically, whatever. It's like, what is the setup? Yeah, either it's there or it isn't. And sometimes my best damn trade is getting out of a loser.
Yep.
I have, after 30 years, I've converted this to a very binary thing. Because the market doesn't give a fuck about your emotions.
Yep.
So everybody needs to understand that. It doesn't know about your bank account, doesn't know about your personal relationships, doesn't know what you're doing. It does not care. Is the setup there or not? And that is it. And you learn through reps to kind of go with the flow and make it work. Dan, you've done a hell of a job, man. It's like, incredible story. And it's like, I love how you've fine-tuned your trading. It's really just spectacular. But it was on that. But it was just a hot spot for me where I finally jumped in. It's like, I don't think about jack shit. Everybody, you can't care. You can't think. The market doesn't care.
That it makes me think of something that I said I was 5th generation railroad, and my uncle was the
I want to see that history. That's crazy.
He was the chief operations officer for Conrail, which is now CSX, and when I started on the railroad, his piece of advice to me, he was the guy who would go to these derailments or these major incidents and talk to the town or talk to someone's family that was just killed, and that stuck with him, and he talked about it often and what that was like. And something he said to me very early, and what you said, Gov, just reminded me of it, was trains don't have a conscience. They don't give a fuck what you're feeling, what you're looking at, what you want. They will kill you just the same, and they will just keep rolling to the next station.
Yeah.
And that was something to me that was very helpful in my early railroad career with maintaining good self-awareness, where if I was in a train yard and there's 3 different trains moving around me and I'm trying to get between different pieces of equipment to pull them apart and put them back together and bring them to the shop to go get their wheels shaved down because they were all flat from stopping and sliding. If I lose my self-awareness and I make the wrong step back into where there was a moving train, that train's going to keep going. It's not going to even know I was there. And in trading, it's a gruesome analogy, but it's just the same. The market's going to keep rolling. Doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what you're doing. You just need to be on your 100% game, or there's no point in doing this because you're just going to lose.
Yep. So I have a classmate. He wanted to be an embassy flight pilot with with Russia. So his goal was to get through flight training and get to the embassy in Russia. And, on landing, so he's on this phase 2, supersonic phase, T-38s. And T-38 is a very delicate aircraft, very delicate. And that is why, the emphasis of getting the reps and understanding the aircraft, these guys can fly the attitudes and vectors that they can. He lost his life. I mean, he was like one of my buddies from the academy. Lost his life. And, I mean, who knew whatever happened, but he clearly lost his vision of what he was doing. I don't know. I mean, it's just like it's a hard thing.
It is. It's a very hard thing. And when we teach how to, and again, I make analogies because railroad is what I know, what's in my blood, and I make a lot of analogies to it because it's when we teach these people that have never walked around a active rail yard, how to go home with all their limbs and fingers and to their families. The biggest thing that we always teach is number one, where is your cell phone? It should be in your bag, it should be off, it should be away. There needs to be no distraction. If there is distraction in your trading, it's not going to be helpful. If there's something going on at your house, if there's something going on at your office, if there's something, whether it's distracting you, distracting others, or pulling your attention from what you're doing, you shouldn't be entering a trade because you cannot fully focus. And the same's in a rail yard. If you cannot be fully focused, get in your fucking car and go home, because I don't want you to get killed. And that's what I've said to new folks that are so glued to their phones these days that it's so terrifying for me, because I don't want to have to be the guy that goes to their family and says, you know why he died? Because he was looking at his fucking phone.
There you go. Hey, Dan,
and
you know what? You were not around this morning. I noted.
No.
I woke up early.
Yeah.
I mean, earlier than normal. And I made a note. It's like I was just not seeing shit. When you get outside your normal sleep schedule, it's like sometimes you're not seeing stuff. I mean, I went and took a nap, came back, and I still wasn't seeing jack shit. And in the meantime, it's like we had the biggest elevator drop, which I normally would have made a fucking killing.
Yep.
But it didn't happen. It's like, and I will be candid with you. I mean, I think my net, I thought I was up. I think I net lost like $1,700. I don't fucking lose money, and I don't like that. So I have an attitude with a major drop that I wasn't able to, be on the positive side. But guess what? On my side, your side, you're on the train side. I'm on the aviation side. It was a shitty flight. I'm moving on. I don't care. Next. Your best decision, folks, the best athletes, best traders. The best traders in the world make as much money as the best athletes in the world. The key attribute is a short-term memory.
Well, Gov, this is and I think I said this to someone the other day, and someone maybe even in this room said this to me once. Trading is the only profession in the world that I can think of that your salary has a direct correlation to your day in and day out performance. And Tom Brady throws an interception, they don't dock his pay. Michael Jordan missed the 3, he didn't lose pay. You mess up trading and make a mistake, you lose money, and your pay gets docked. And so if you think about it that way, that your salary is directly correlated to your performance, why in the fuck would you, and I'm saying this to myself too, would you want to be trading when you are not 100% in it?
Right. So it's about like what snaps you out of it. That's
just it.
Right?
It is how to do that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a quick story. I haven't done one of these Thursday things. So I have a very circuitous route to trading. Anyway, so I finally get to the trading floors, and with some good advice, guys were telling me, it was like, you know what? Don't just go in and trade. We know you have your own money to trade, and that's a separate story. And I'll get back to that when I talk. So I did a clerking job in the S&P 500. And then I did a clerking job in the Eurodollar, back then Eurodollars. In the Eurodollars, the interest rates, the futures, when you get further back, it was more complex. But that's where I thought I would thrive, because I got on the trading floors as a 35-year-old guy, where everybody thought I was the Fed, and I somehow kind of just like learned the biz.
Do we lose them?
I think so. Go if we can't hear you.
Well, we lost him. Well, we will come back to him if he knows. I don't know if GD maybe could. Actually, I think I have his number somewhere. I could text him. Let me go to the next one while we wait for.
I'll text him.
Thanks, Rich. Let me see. Where was I here? Oh, there I was. Gov's back. Welcome back. Maybe not. The next one you had was, how were you able to become profitable with Apex? By not making shitty trades and by respecting the trailing drawdown, and by selling on down ticks or covering on or selling on upticks, covering on down ticks. You cannot let trades go against you in Apex until you have a massive cushion. Today would have been an awful day to trade Apex. It looks, and again, I'm only looking at it from the afternoon, and I've barely had a chance to really look at what happened today's action. But you couldn't have just sat in that, especially at the end of the day when we went from 12 to 31 in, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes. That would stop you out of that Apex stuff. So size down, play micros, learn micros. I still will play. I mean, I was talking to Gov the other day. I play 30, 40 micros most of the time. That's my sizing, because if I'm playing 3 or 4 minis, I run out of things to scale. And then what happens to me personally is I get FOMO if I don't have a runner. So once I get down to my runner, I attach it to my moving average or 3 points above the moving average if I'm trying to trade a trend, and I let that thing just ride, and I stop really paying attention to it. And I know if it gets over that moving average, my runner's out. But I've already made my money, and that thing's just going to trail and go against me or ride down with me. But that's the biggest advice I have for Apex evaluations is trading small, learning sort of your own trading style, and don't be ashamed to take a 3-point winner. A 3-point winner is awesome when you're trying to pass that evaluation. The evaluations have a really good effect on some people and a really, really poor effect on others. And because it changes how they trade. And for some people, I've had feedback that it really throws them off. For me, it really told me to stop being so okay with risk. that was really what Apex did for me. Was it allowed? I am a person that I am okay with seeing trades go against me if I still believe that trade's good, right? But Apex really took that gene out of me and forced me in a cruel way through blowing up evaluation accounts to sell and fucking make money. I think Neil said it last week or someone said it. I can't remember who, but your entry's great. Your exit's when you get paid. Don't you like when you work to get paid at the end of the week? I mean, that's when you get paid. So there's nothing wrong with selling or covering. Make your money. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's a big problem people have is they always are holding on for more. Make that money and move on. And as for my undeniable edge in futures, I'm fast. My edge is that I can make decisions very, very, very fast. I know what I'm looking for. I know when I have a trade, and I usually am stalking a trade. Like yesterday afternoon, I was stalking that trade. I saw Neil post a good level. I saw Gov getting into SPX, which always to me is sort of like light bulb. What's he seeing? So I start looking for what he's seeing. And then sort of if I see what he's seeing, because that's important. I'm not just going to follow what he's doing, even though I trust him probably more than most any trader I've ever traded in one of these rooms around. I need to see what he's seeing, and I did. I looked at Apple. I saw the Russell starting to perk. And I knew that if Apple didn't break that 53, I think it was, I knew that the thing was going to turn around, and then shorts were just gonna shit themselves. And
we're seeing confluence.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my edge. My edge is being fast and making decisions fast. I'm not wishy-washy. If I'm wishy-washy, I'm not trading because it means I'm doubting something I'm seeing. My confidence, and whether my confidence is right or wrong, my confidence to take a trade is almost always there if I'm taking it.
So Dan, what I'm kind of wondering about, I always talked about this, the quick scale of what is the feedback they gave me, because I approach a trade where the confluence of different levels, I'm getting in. And my key is, if I don't get the quick scale, that tells me a lot. And I noticed that you're starting to pay attention to that. Are you seeing the same thing, or is it maybe just more my levels and completely different approaches?
Can you say that again? Just it broke up for a second for me, and I think I probably missed the important part here.
Okay. So when I enter trades, my key is, if I don't get, I approach entries in key confluence areas. And when I go in, if I don't get the quick scales, I reduce half size or I'm out, and I reassess. I noticed for the first time, I think today or actually yesterday, you did that. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, because I don't want, that's my approach. I want to know. I mean, go ahead. I'm just.
I learned that from you. And actually, Neil put me on to someone, and I think I had mentioned that Pax Trader 777 is his Twitter handle. Phenomenal follow. Some of his material, he has some stuff on YouTube of interviews with him. I believe you know him, and he used this saying, right away or right out. And, that really hit me because I watched something of his, I think it was over last weekend. He was talking about, one of the ways that he knows, I think the question was, how do you know when to get out of a trade, And as a futures trader, he said, if I'm not right away, I'm right out. And that was a real sort of hit me because it's something you've said, and and so that's sort of what I'm trying to add that into my game. When I took everything I was doing right and threw it in the trash can, and I sort of took from looking at all these, whether it's options flow or 10 different Discord rooms or a news feed or a news squawk, whatever.
Oh my God!
I broke it all down and I threw all that stuff away, and then I started building back with layers of the things that I actually really need, and I really found it's not much, and the execution part of the game has always been, for me, the hardest part. Finding trades for me and sort of being able to read the chart, for me, it comes pretty easily. Actually making the trade is really, really hard to me. And I am just a horribly executing trader sometimes.
So what you're talking about there is the same issue with the abundance. I mean, the world, the universe of traders, because you can have an area. So there's a level, right? But I try to shift to an area of interest, and I watch the price action at that area, and then I get in. But for a lot of people, it's like if they're like so steadfast on a specific level, they have a stop. Well, they have a stop where I figured there were a bunch of stops, so I actually shorted their stop. I mean, so I'm doing that.
I find myself doing it all the time, and I often, and I hope no one takes this the wrong way, I don't post trades sometimes in the room because someone else will have just longed something and then stopped out, and then I will. It's because I don't want to I don't want that appearance of like I'm going against someone or trying to show someone up, so I'm just trading in my own sort of area. But, I really have gone away from the this is the level. If it's 4,002, the level to me is really 4,000 to like 4,006, right? So my goal is, if I'm longing that, I know that there's a major level, and I'm just making these numbers up, so don't take the numbers, but I know there's a major level at 4,006, right? How many times have we seen major levels just break and then people all stop out and then it reverses and have that happen to them where they longed or they shorted at a level and then, oh shit, they do the oh shit stop out. And that's the market, Mr. Market taking your money.
And Dan, that is exactly how I shifted from specific levels to areas of interest like half a dozen years ago. I mean, I saw that happening. So
it happens a lot.
I kind of went to areas, and that is when I fine-tuned with the SPX and SPYs of their levels, and I would do the correlation. And folks, I'm telling you, it's like you guys have all heard me before already. It's like I fine-tune off those levels from real-time trading hours, and it helps me with the futures. And it helps me gauge when occasionally, all of a sudden, how is it I'm not trading futures? And I'm now trading options. I mean, it had been probably 2 weeks. And yesterday, I went into the call options because I thought we were at a real crucial level. And I knew, so I was long the calls. And I knew if I was wrong, I could hammer the futures. And I didn't give a fuck. I mean, the straddle, I mean, it was like $2 plus or minus to where the SPX was. I was like, I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose.
Well, and yesterday was actually a really good example of that. So my level was 75 and 75.50, I think it was, and I actually longed that level twice yesterday. So the first time I longed it right, I longed it right at the level because that's such a huge level, it's going to bounce off there. The second time I'm like, I don't know if this one's going to hold this time, and I think I even posted in the room, and I would need to look. I'm 99% sure I did. That I could see this dumping through the level and ripping, and it was just that. What's that?
I said I think you made that comment.
Yeah,
so that
and
that would
that's
be
just
the
exactly
point.
it.
Hey Dan, that would be the point why I was on the options.
Yeah,
that is because I knew the decay was there. It was like SPX plus or minus 5. It was $2 for the calls, $2 for the puts.
Yep, you're right.
That is when I shifted from futures to the options because I knew that if I was wrong, I could slam in the futures, but if I was right, I'm gonna get multiple X and then fucking killed it. And I know a lot of people. Good.
And in that situation, so how I traded that level break. So I didn't try and catch, and this has been a long time mistake of mine personally. And I this is why I'm using this example because actually yesterday was, and I rarely can say this, that yes, that trade at the end of the day was one of my better executed trades probably ever. And it was only a 20-point trade, and I've had 6-figure days trading CL. But that trade yesterday, so we went through the 75, and I was messing around with you saying I was stink bidding the same option you were in because I actually thought there was a good chance we could get to a buck. I missed it by a dime, I think, motherfucker. But
you were actually playing with the options?
I tried. I didn't fill. I think you entered at like 180 or something, and you were in the zone. You weren't paying attention to me what I was doing, but I
was definitely not paying attention to you.
So I tried to put it because I really thought that they were gonna drop it under that 75 level and catch everyone off guard and have everyone stop out and try and shorting it, which we've seen so many times at the end of the day.
Sure. But it's all about the tells, right? So I had the few
we had all of them.
So I had the few tells, and I was comfortable with, but I was comfortable with the consolidation there. And
yep,
my vibes were we weren't going to break down yesterday.
Well, and the Russell was pointed straight up, and it was already over the 10 SMA. It was not doing the same thing that NQ was doing, which was the problem.
And the Russell is my beacon, man. Helps me stay in a trade. At least get a scale. So, all right. So you know what? I don't want to hog your call.
I think what happened there and how I personally played that one was I didn't fill on SPX and whatever. I was only sort of playing that as a secondary. It would have been a bigger gain if I hit it, but I didn't. So I waited for that level to break, that 75 level. I didn't try and catch it at 71 or 72 or whatever to try and get the reversal. I waited for it to reverse back above that level. And I think that Arran or whatever that guy's name is calls it something. I don't know what his name is, but he calls it the fake breakdown or whatever it is. Whatever fancy name he has for it, it's something that happens all the time. And I waited for it to come back to it. As soon as I didn't see it rejecting and I didn't see NQ making a new low, I just slammed it.
There you go.
And that's like Braden's asked.
But those are like when you have a trade or you're looking to enter into a trade, or add to a position, you're so fine-tuned into what the various sectors are doing. So that was awesome. I saw that you nailed it. That was awesome. I was on the option side, and that worked out rather favorably as well.
And I think there's really no substitute sometimes for intuition also, but intuition comes from looking at all of your signals, and then you get a good feeling in your belly. You shouldn't be getting a good feeling in your belly and then looking at all your signals and they're all going the wrong way, and you're like, yeah, I'm entering because my belly says so. You've got to have the two working together. And there's too much out there and in these different rooms of discretionary trading, where it's, it feels like it. I see that all the time. It feels like it's going to break. Well, you know what? Nothing is fucking saying it looks like it's going to break either. It might feel that way, but, you've got to avoid trying to fall into that trap of what something feels like and instead rely on what you're looking at and get rid of sort of that feeling, because that's what can get you hurt, is trading in making discretionary trades on feel.
My goal every morning is to make as many good decisions as I can. And today
my goal every morning is to not fuck up.
And you know what? I take a positive approach.
Yeah. Maybe I've had enough fuck ups, so I'm not quite optimistic about my days enough yet.
Well, I think that when you have a setup and it doesn't work out, you respect your stop. And for me, that's a positive thing, because I respected my plan for that setup. And I exit the trade and I readdress, or I move on. Or in this case, today, people I'm telling is like, I got up early. I was not seeing it. I had to go I went and took a nap. I came back and I still wasn't seeing jack shit. And I had that serious case of optical erectosis. It was like, I just couldn't see it. And today was an elevator day where I normally, candidly, this would have been a six-figure day for me. But, I lost money. What are you going to do?
Next.
Yeah, that's my favorite word, next.
I know. And I truly think that that's a word that everyone should be saying to themselves a lot. Because as stupid as it sounds, I've started saying it to myself, and it sort of just helps my brain snap out of a stupid trade or a dumb mistake or a execution error where I misclicked the button, or my keyboard died, or whatever it is. Next. And it sounds so silly and so stupid, but it really just helps your brain move on. And if you're having trouble moving on, move out of the room and get yourself away from the screen so that you can physically move away from the mistake, and come back with sort of a fresh mind and ready for the next one. Because you gotta be ready for the next one. And like I said, trains don't have conscience. Machinery doesn't have a conscience. It'll kill you just the same and keep rolling. Same with the market. It'll kill you just the same and it will keep rolling, and it won't even know you existed yesterday.
So I'll give you a real life example. So I was fortunate to put myself on the trading floors myself, and it's like 6 months on the floor, in the pit, and we had the Singapore exchanges going. So I was trading euro dollar spreads, and a couple of guys kind of threw me into that I could probably offset my risk or capture some different opportunities. So kind of played around with that. And then it was probably about the 10th month in the business on the floor. So I'm on the trading floor, and I had all these contracts that were working in Singapore. And my goal was to enter what's called an OCO, an order cancels order. So I only want these if these don't fill. I failed to enter the OCO. So I woke up the next day, went on to the trading force, and my clerk is like, "You're completely fucked." So I had 200 grand in my account. And he goes, "You're down 85, and if you can't get out of it, you're going to be down 150. So I went into the pit. My asshole is quivering. I went into the pit and try to kind of maintain my composition. And I reached out to one of our elders right behind me in the pit. And I just said, it's like, "Dude, whenever you got to take a piss, I got to take a piss because I got to talk to you." It's like, I need some help. So he knew what I was talking about, and he just grabbed me by the shoulders and he goes, "Out of the pit, let's go talk." So we went and talked, and he said, "I want you to take all your orders, hand them to Sammy Bailey, which is just a forward broker, and he's going to get you out of these goddamn trades. And I want you to forget. I want you to think that doesn't exist. That is absent from your account now. You need to now be in the present of what you're going to do going forward." And, unfortunately, it's like, Sammy wasn't able to get me out of all those goddamn bad positions. And my 200 grand account kind of ran down to 35 grand or something. And I walked in the next day. I was like, well, I guess I'm starting it up again. So that was within my first year of the business. And I've got more stories on that, but that was my first fucking year of getting annihilated. And knowing that I had an issue and I needed to reach out to somebody that I could trust that guide me. It's like, and the guidance is, get the fuck out of your shitty positions. And now you can think clearly, even if you get back in the previous trades. It doesn't matter. You got to get out of the shit so you can think clearly. Anyway, I thought I would be talking about that one when I talk one day, but whatever. It's rather.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure you will, and I'm just looking through my brief little chicken scratch notes here to see if there was anything, and I know I don't want to take up the rest of you guys' evening, and I really enjoy these things and these conversations, whether I'm speaking or listening. I think the knowledge in this room as a collective group it's unlike anything I've ever been a part of. And to listen to people that have all different varied experiences, and sometimes the best trading knowledge isn't actually about trading, but how you can keep yourself from making mistakes or get away from the screen, or all different ways that it doesn't always need to be I'm taking this put or this call at this spot. The biggest part of trading for me, and my biggest challenge in my journey has always been managing emotions, managing my trades, managing my account. And if you can't manage those three things and run trading like it's a business, you're doomed. I hate to sort of say it like that, but probably the biggest light bulb moment I had in trading was when I sort of found standard deviations. For me, that was like actually technically in pure trading. That was when I sort of was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a mean reversion trader, and that for me has really taken off. And now that has become my strategy, and I'm trying to constantly get better at it because I find that picking spots for a possible reversal when we get sort of too far gone or too far up, to me is an easier prospect than sitting still and riding a trend down. A trend day. I think Scoob mentioned once, or someone mentioned, maybe it was someone else, but sort of that bell curve of you've got 10% of days are going to be just sort of wildly choppy, where it has like a 50-point range going sort of up and down, looking like an EKG. You're going to have sort of 10% of days are going to be trend days that just sort of are going in one direction. And then you've got the 80% in the middle of that bell curve that are just going to sort of be somewhere in between that. And I find that the somewhere in between that is the spot where I want to live as a trader, because if I can trade those days, which are going to be 80% of them, I can be much more successful. I'm not a patient person to wait for a trend day. I cannot sit still and wait for a trend day to come. I will just overtrade thinking every day is a trend day. So I might as well learn how to trade to how my brain works, which is, I want to take a trade in the day and I can pick my spots to make 5-10 points. And then sometimes those 5-10 points are 20, 30, 40, 50. You never know. And that's why leaving a runner.
So if I don't my goal is I typically make my money by 10:30 every single day. And if I don't make it one day, I set it off and I kind of like just chill and I wait for maybe some outlier opportunity and it adds to the day. But I don't worry about it.
I don't know when my sort of money is made by. I know when my worst time of the day to trade is traditionally, and that's from 3 to 4.
So all right. So Dan, I have a question for you. So, I mean, is your demeanor the same every day? Does the market know your demeanor is the same every day?
No.
How the fuck do you know?
No. My demeanor is like an EKG.
All right. So the market is the same way. It doesn't give a flying fuck about you and your P&L, and that is the message for everybody listening. It doesn't give a fuck. It's like, have your process and work it, and you kind of move on. I just know from experience over a lot of years trading that it's like the bulk of the money is made before 10, 10:30, 11 Central Time. So if you know that, if you've heard that, if you've heard compelling, convincing evidence of that, develop a process that you can pay attention to what is going on and make your trades early. You don't feel like shit if it doesn't work out, but just know that after 10:30, you know what? You've now entered high probability land, and that is when we are on the floors, George and I, Neil and I, 10:30. I mean, we were going to Sirius at the Board of Trade for breakfast. We were not wasting our time. It is the same thing now. It's about
having that time of the day. Personally, I have always found like 11, and we're on different time zones. So for me, noon or 11 to like 1, I actually find that time of the day quite profitable because it's slower and the market tends to be moving slower during that time. And I can usually, when it slows down, I can pick my spots well. And that's just sort of it's personal preference, and that's what's so great about the market.
It's
You can trade any way you want.
It's a different style. And electronically, I mean, it's a completely different style. I mean, because if you see that, you can see these tight ranges, and you can be in and out, in and out, and in and out. That's just not my gig. But I'm trying to be healthy so I can go to Hawaii and go fish.
Yeah, right. And you know, that I think that as I grow and mature in my trading, you know, it's going to evolve. And I think that that's sort of my big message is, you know, I know and I see the evolution of my own trading game over not that long period of time. I mean, what is it now? Just about 6 years ish. I see that evolution happening, and every day, really, I guess I don't see differences from Monday to Tuesday, but you know, from January to February, from February to March, you know, I see the evolution of my own trading and growing and coming together and finding what I do well and what I do poorly. And I think that that's an important message for everybody is that not everyone's journey is going to be the same here. And to compare your journey to my journey, or compare my journey to Gov's journey, or Neil's, or Rich's, or Lee's, you know, all of our journeys, all of our personalities. And that's why I sort of shared some stuff about my sort of life, I guess, is everyone's journey is different. Everyone's going to have different experiences, and that's going to change how you approach things, how your mentality works. And if I'm giving you advice on your trading, it may be the exact wrong advice for you, because I can only give advice on what's worked for me and what's traditionally helped me grow and get better. So
you know what? So well said. Because I mean, you know what? You did one hell of a job, and I was tickled thing that you kind of went through your journey of how you rose up and all that. I mean, it took a lot of guts, and it's like, it's like the character building and the building for the situations and how you find yourself trading. I mean, it's different. I mean, and mine was completely different. So it can be done by this business can be done, but everybody has a different journey, and that's what you're saying. So, I mean, you know what? Thank you for doing that. Oh my God, I really learned a lot, and I really appreciated what you went through. And so,
well, thank you guys for having me, and hopefully I didn't bore everyone to death with my incessant rambling, but you know, I think that at the end of the day, that just what Gov said is that the whole point of all of that was that, you know, we all have different journeys. We all have different roads to get where what we're trying to do here. But at the end of the day, if you want to have longevity in doing this, you have to find your road and how you're going to get there. So that's all I got for the evening.
Well, thanks, Dan, and thank you, David, for chiming in as well. And we look forward to getting David on his own night for the GovTrade show, and hopefully that'll be maybe
traveling for a long time.
Well, hopefully we can work it in with your baseball schedule. But thanks everybody for coming again. And as usual, it was recorded. And as Dan said, you know, everybody has to take their own path. But the good news is that we've got a very strong community here of about 70 folks. And for the most part, everybody's willing to talk to you, work with you outside of regular trading hours, share their story with you. It doesn't mean that their story is a story that's going to match with you, but I find that the more time I spend talking to other people and learning what they do and how they do it, it's eventually coalesced into something that I have found works for me as well. And so please do reach out to anybody and everyone. And I would be surprised if anybody denied you the chance to have a great conversation. But as usual,
and I add one more thing. And I know there's only so many of us that are in the actual room, and many will listen to this spaces after. But if anyone is struggling with sort of substance issues, mental health issues, you always can reach out to me. To I know Rich would welcome a text or a call. Life sucks and life's hard, but it's much harder when you're doing it by yourself. So don't stay silent and take care of yourselves.
absolutely.
Thank
Those
you.
were phenomenal words. Get out of your head, standing room only in your head. Yeah, that was awesome.
Dan and I both have families and individuals, selves with histories of mental health problems and substance abuse, and we avail ourselves to anyone who needs guidance. If you know anybody that needs guidance, we can happily help anyone, whether they're in this room or not. I'm involved in helping people all over the country with recovery. So I hope everybody has a great night and look forward to a fantastic non-farm payroll morning. Don't forget that comes out at 8:30 in the morning.
Hey, Rich,
Good night. Good night, everyone.
You know what?
Thanks, guys.
Dan, thanks guys.
Night, Dan.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.